Hello everyone. Good morning. We are here today for the national webinar on research methodology. I, Assistant Professor Divyang Poddar, welcome you all on behalf of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti's College of Law. We are here to explore the arena of research, and this webinar will surely help participants to gain an intricate knowledge of collecting and analyzing data with different methods and tools. It will comprise both theoretical and practical aspects of research methodology. It will also introduce participants to qualitative as well as quantitative research methodology along with the use of different softwares. The participant will also get a demonstration of how to approach data visualization as well. We have invited eminent academicians from reputed universities like University of Rome, Tata Institute of Social Science, Mumbai National Law University, University of Mumbai, and Parul University. There are few things I would like to bring you into attention. Please feel free to ask questions at the end of the session. Our guest speakers would be more than happy to clear your doubts. You will get an e-certificate only after attending all the sessions and submitting the feedback form for all 3 years. Students who are attending the session on YouTube, please write your name in chat box to mark your attendance. I hope you will have a wonderful experience. Now I would like to ask our principal ma'am to say a few words.
Thank you, Divyang sir. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay. So, very pleasant morning to all the dignitaries and participants. So, I would like to start with a quote wherein Neil Armstrong have said about the research that research is creating a new knowledge. So, with this, I, Dr. Mrs. Madhura Kramkar, in charge principal of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti College of Law, feels highly honored to welcome you all on this occasion of National Webinar on Research Methodology, which is organized by HUPS College of Law. To mark the beginning, I would like to extend my warm welcome to our President Sir, Dr. Rajendra Singh Sir, Dr. Mrs. Usha Mukundan Madam, Director of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti, all the teachers, students, and participants. I also welcome today's speaker, Maringela Barletta, lawyer and PhD scholar from the University of Rome. Also, we have with us Dr. Mohammad Salim Khan sir, who is from Parul University. I think madam have not joined with us. So we can start with the Salim sir. Before that, I just want to say about the research a very few words that research methodology is a way to systematically solve the research problem. So this word research is basically composed of the two syllables, what we can say that re and search. So re is a prefix, means again and again, a new or over again. So like that way. And search is to examine closely and carefully, to test and try to say. So together with this careful and systematic patient study and investigation in the field of knowledge undertaken to establish the facts and the principles. So research is basically structured inquiry, which we can say that utilizes for the scientific methodology to solve the problems and to create new knowledge that is generally applicable. So these scientific methods, we can say, which consist of observation, classification, and interpretation of data. So from the point of view of application, we can say there are the two categories of the research. One is pure and other one is applied. But basically, I think applied research is applied in the most of the institution. So speaking about the pure research, which involves the developing and testing the theories and the hypothesis that may or may not have a practical application at this present time or also in the future. But applied research is like which is done for to solve the scientific and practical questions for we can say policy formulations, administration, and understanding the phenomenon. So this applied research, we can say, which can be carried out carried out by the academics and industrial institutions. So with this, I would like to conclude this welcome speech with a very famous words of Bill Gates. I believe in innovation, and that the way you get innovation is you fund research and you learn the basic facts. So now I will request Assistant Professor Divyan sir to carry on with the session. And if the madam have not yet joined, we can ask Salim sir is there, so he can carry on with the lecture. Thank you all. Thank you. Sir, you are not audible.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insightful thoughts on research. Now I request Assistant Professor Amar Sarve sir to introduce our guest speaker for today's session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Very good morning, everyone. I, Assistant Professor Amar Salve, feeling very honored to introduce our today's session speaker, Professor Mohammad Salim Khan, sir, is currently working as an assistant professor at Parul Institute of Law, Parul University, Vadodara, Gujarat. Sir has completed LLM from Amity University, Maharashtra, MBA in Operation Management from Jaipur National University, Rajasthan, PhD honorary causa in World Peace Education from United Nations University of Global Peace, USA. Sir is also having corporate experience of 16 years, worked with companies like Specialty Group of Restaurants, Reliance Capital Services, Reliance Money Infrastructure Limited, etc. Sir is also having experience of founding in-charge principal of KLE College of Law, Karamboli, Navi Mumbai. Sir also recipient of various awards like International Student Debating Association Championship held at Seoul in the year 2000, Best Professor Award 2019, Nurturer of Talent Award 2018, World Peace Excellence Award 2018, IBRF Excellence Award 2018, Adarsh Vidya Saraswati Rashtriya Puraskar 2018, Outstanding Research Scholar 2018. Sir also participated and attended more than 200 national and international seminar, conferences, and webinars. Sir also written 19 research papers which has been published in national and international journals, and also contributed 5 chapters in various edited books. Sir also judged various national and international moot courts. Sir also invited as a resource person in various national and international webinar, conferences, and seminars. Sir have 4 patented published, and nevertheless, Sir's name is also recorded in India Book of Record, Asia Book of Records, and World Book of Records. Very huge list, sum up in a very small brief. We are very glad to have with us. Over to you, Salim sir. We are very curious to listen words of wisdom from you on the today's theme. Dr. Mohammad Salim Khan sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Amar sir, for that elaborate description of myself. Am I audible clearly?
Yes, sir. You are.
Yes, sir.
To start with, the very first thing I would like to thank the organizers, especially Hindi Vidya Prasara Committee. It's a second home for me, and Dr. Madhura Madam is like a younger sister to me. Thanks for giving me this opportunity, Madam. To start with, I would like to share my PPT. Is it visible?
Yes,
Yes.
sir, it is visible.
Okay, thank you. Now, I would like to continue from where Madhura Madam left. When we talk about the word research, what exactly is the research? It is something which is already available, but we again and again try to research in it. That is research in a layman's language. Something which has been already discovered, but there is something which is innovative left in that which has not been yet deciphered. I'm using two different words over here, which has been invented and deciphered. Fine. So we try to take out from it. Take example, the best thing of research, if you really want to understand and learn what is research, you have to see this, MasterChef, various events comes for MasterChef, MasterChef India, MasterChef Australia, and that. In that, when these participants, when they make various dishes, at that time the judges come and they take just one spoon, one scoop, what we call it, and they put it in mouth. And from that one scoop or one just spoon of that material, they are able to say what are the ingredients that have been put, whether that ingredients have been tampered or that have been, I can say marinated properly or it has been cooked properly, whether it has been overcooked, half cooked, undercooked, or what. Fine. This is what is the art of research to understand. Second most important, we really eat food at home. Right? Somebody in the family cooks that particular food. The ingredients that are being used are the same. The material that are being used are the same. The person who is eating that particular food or making that particular food is different.
Hello, sir. Your voice is a little bit is
Okay.
not audible
Okay,
actually.
fine.
Yeah.
Fine. Am I audible now?
Yes, yes, sir. Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Fine. Thank you.
Sorry.
So somebody makes food at our home. The ingredients used are the same. The time used are the same. The person is the same. But every day there will be something or the other addition or deletion to that particular. Every day when you eat it, you will someday find, wow, today it is tasting something extra. Something has been added to it. Today something is missing. That is what research we do daily, day in and day out. When we travel daily in a train or in a bus, we make some friends over there. That is also a research. The next day when that person is not available, third day you come back and you say, oh, you were not there yesterday. What happened? That creates a unique spot in your brain where the identity of that person is created. That is what is exactly the research. Fine. So these components of research are something which is very much important in the life of the people. Day in and day out, we do research. Every day we do research. Yes, you are walking the steps of your office, of your house. Daily you use some technique. You see people using some different techniques. You observe people. Your observation is also a technique of research. That is what research, and research plays a very important role. Coming back to our fraternity of law, without research, law can never be completed. Every day when an advocate is supposed to be present before the court to present his case, every case will have a unique background. The advocate knows that his client has done something wrong, but he wants to save his client. For that, he finds out certain ways. It may be in the form of provision or it may be in the form of a loophole in the law from which he tries to take an advantage for the benefit of his client. That is a research. You have to cite a case law to the judge. Without research, you cannot. Fine. So yes, research is a part and parcel of the legal fraternity. Coming back to my topic, which has been assigned to me today, literature review. Now, what is literature review, or how a literature review is done? Can anybody say in the chat box? Yeah. What exactly is a literature review? Yeah, anybody from the audience? Okay, I'll put it the other way around. What is a literature? Literature is an available data which is already there, which has been done, deciphered, or which has been discovered by somebody. When we talk about activities, yes, Ritupuran. Okay, Ritupuran says that it is a study of the existing research work done on a similar topic. But is that a literature? Knowledge of specific topic, yes. Literature helps us to enhance the knowledge. See, every research that we do have certain purpose, right? When I choose a topic for a research, it has a purpose. I want to achieve something from that research, or I want to find out something through this particular research. Now, how will I find out that my research that I have done is a unique one? The common definition or the common explanation about research is it is very unique. So how will I come to know that the research that I am doing is unique and nobody else has done that particular research? For that, the role of literature review plays very important part, in which we try to organize ourselves and we try to find out the sources. Exactly speaking, literature review is a survey of the scholarly sources. It is survey of the scholarly sources that provides an overview of a particular topic. It is the collection of most relevant and significant published topics regarding the topic of the interest of the researcher. It provides a comprehensive look at what has been said in the topic and by whom. This is the most simplest definition of literature. And yes, I may do a research, I may complete my research, and after that, if I come to know that this has been already done by somebody else, what will be the use of my research? That's why when we talk about literature review, it is said that it is the backbone of a research.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
You have to start your
Yeah,
slides.
yeah.
Actually.
I'm not. I have not yet operated my slides. Sir.
Okay,
Yes,
okay, okay,
I'm
okay.
aware of. Yeah, don't worry. Fine. So that is the most important thing that we need to understand over here. Fine. Sorry. Fine. So when I say what is a literature review, I means the researcher, he intends to say that it is a review of an account of what has been published on a topic by an accredited scholar or a researcher. Occasionally, a researcher has to ask certain questions to himself while writing his review. Now, when we write literature review, there are two types or two patterns of writing literature review. In India and in Asia, the most commonly used style of writing literature review is our literature review forms the part of chapter 1, that is introduction. That is the most common style that is found in India. But yes, if you go to the American and the British side, nowadays, literature review is a separate chapter. When it comes to your dissertation of your PhD, MPhil, or postdoctoral thesis, it plays a very important role. That's why I believe so. Since year 2002, we'll find that many of these universities, most acclaimed universities in Europe and America, and even in some parts of Southeast Asia, Australia, there they have made it mandatory that literature review has to be a separate chapter in itself. Earlier, before 1990s, literature review was considered to be as a part of the bibliography. And even today, in the UG, dissertations or in some literature, some review type of, I can say, experimentations. There also nowadays, again, this literature review is a part of only bibliography, which doesn't play an important role over there. But at present, currently, yes, it plays a very important role. Now, why? What should be the aim of this literature review, or why should a researcher do a literature review? Very first thing, to identify the topic. In a research, when I do my dissertation at UG, PG level, or MPhil, PhD, any level, very first thing is what? I have to choose a suitable topic for my research. So identification of the topic is one of the most important or the primary work that a researcher has to do. For example, a student comes and says, "Sir, मेरे को यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड में research करो." Now, how can you do a research on uniform civil code? There has to be something that you want to find out. That is what is research. What you will find out. Uniform civil code is always there. Provision is there. Article 44 of the Constitution of India, it talks about uniform civil code. There are codified laws related to uniform civil code in 9 states of India. 3 state assemblies, the bill is pending. Goa Uniform Civil Code, more than 12 years old. How much are we aware of? So what I want to find out, Uniform Civil Code, yes, it is there. What will be my research in that Uniform Civil? Am I talking about the governance part? Am I talking about the implementation part? Am I talking about the provisions? Am I talking about how it is affecting which particular category of people, which particular group of people? That is most important thing that we need to understand. Fine. So for that, I go through various sources, primary sources, secondary sources, internet sources, online sources. I will show you some sources in the next coming up slides. So I go to the slides, I go to the websites, and I try to find out whether this topic has been, any research in this particular topic has been done by someone. Fine. So we have identified the topics. Next will be generate related questions to that particular topic. Like just now, I gave you example of uniform civil. If I have to do a research in uniform civil code, what exactly am I looking out in uniform civil code? Do I want to do a research on the effects of uniform civil code on the society, implementation of uniform civil code, or I want to do a comparative analysis of the existing uniform civil codes in the different states of India, how they have been implemented, what was the condition before implementation of uniform civil code, what is the condition after implementation of the civil code, or I want to go further ahead and I say that uh, after the enactment of uniform civil code in this particular state, this act has been affected, this act will become redundant. So that will give me my second insight for my research work. Next thing that it gives me, it states the unsolved questions. Now, this is where I fulfill my definition of the word research, where I try to find out the answers to the unsolved questions. Yes, many researchers, many PhDs world over have been done in the topic of uniform civil code. My uniqueness comes out over here. Why am I doing this particular research? How will it affect the society? What contribution my research will do in the society? Where it will take the other researchers? What are the gaps that I am leaving in my particular research? What will be further scope of research in this particular field? That are certain unsolved questions to which I shall be answering in the research. Now, when I have these questions in my hand, I should also have the solutions for these particular questions. Now, to be speaking frankly, yes, a researcher cannot have a solution for each and every question that comes. But yes, to a certain extent, some solutions can be developed. Now, a researcher should ensure that while developing such solutions, it has to be in accordance or in line with the problems that he has tried to find out while taking the research topic. It has to be in the form of the answers to the unsolved questions. I again repeat, all questions may not be answered. That's why when we talk about hypothesis, we limit our hypothesis to maximum 4 or 5 hypotheses in a research. We don't have 10, 20 and hundreds of hypotheses. Fine. So by literature review, these particular aims of the research are answered. Next, what are the different backgrounds of this particular? The very first thing, it talks about knowledge. Take simple examples. 20, 25 years down the line when I was doing my law, we didn't have that much of resources, as much as resources that are available today. During that time, if one Supreme Court judgment was passed, to get access to that particular judgment, it used to take 2-3 months until and unless it is published in the SCC, it is binded up over there. The copy of that SCC comes for a sale. We buy, somebody buys that copy, and then we as student and researchers would take nicely Xerox of that and read about that particular. What is today's era? Click of button, as the judgment is uploaded on the website of the respective courts, it's available for you. No need of applying to the court for a copy of that, paying charges for that, easily available. And as time grows, as the facilities grows, we have multiple arenas. We have n number of various support systems in the form of the various reviews, in the form of various reporters, which by the use of the information technology or the IT have made our life at ease. Today, I can find out a case very easily by the name of the case, number of the case, name of the party, the court where it was, under what particular sections or what particular act that cases are there. I can get filters and I can find n number of cases related. That things were not available 20, 30 years down the line. And this gamut of information do grows from time to time. And as the number of sources increases, we get more and more and more information. Has anybody of you have read the Babri Masjid, judgment? If anybody, just please raise your hand. 631 pages judgment. Very scholarly drafted. Anybody have read it? That is the issue with our legal fraternity. I have teachers, I have students, I have advocates, and I have researchers in the group over here. And I can't see even one hand being raised. If you read that entire judgment, at many places, I believe so 3 to 4 places in that particular judgment, the judges have even pointed out to certain research papers that have been published. That is the beauty of this particular judgment. There is a judgment of the Delhi High Court, which is called as the 5 FIR cases. Please read that. Everybody in this group, please read that. See the language of the judgment, the way the judges have communicated to the administration or to the police. A very short judgment, but very superb judgment. For an incident that took place, 5 FIRs were launched for the same premises by 5 different people. The accused were the same. The High Court quashed this particular judgment, FIR, saying that it all has to be clubbed into one. That's the beauty. We don't read judgments. I'm extremely sorry to say, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of research paper and dissertations. Very, very few sites about the judgment. Judgment plays a very important role in legal research. The Transgenders Rights Bill Act, now it is an Act, 2016. It has come out from the NALSA judgment. So if you're doing a research on transgender and you're not citing that particular judgment, I don't think so your research will be complete without that. Modern times, we have access. We should know from where to get it. That is most important. I'm extremely sorry. We legal fraternities, we teachers, we researchers, lawyers, we all fail in this particular. Legal research or any research that we do today, it has become a mockery. Cut, copy, paste. And after that, paraphrasing, using some software, research is ready. There has to be some hard work. Let's really do an exercise. Take out 20, 30 research papers and just try to find out from that particular research paper, is there any literature review work done in that particular research? There will be not a single paragraph talking about literature review. Why is that? From where does the knowledge came to the researcher? How the researcher can express that yes, this research has not been done by anybody without going through a literature review? Just simply give your bibliography saying that these are the articles that I have referred to, these are the books that I have referred to, and it becomes your bibliography come literature review. Explain, dedicate a paragraph in your research paper talking about literature review that you have done. That is a proper research as such. What I feel so. And nowadays in the Western and the European countries, that plays a very important role. Next, do we read the annual reports of publications? There are n number of sources wherein we can get handy information. NCRB, simple example, National Crime Record Bureau. It gives statistics in the minutest of the minutest form of the various crimes, its ratios, state-wise, nation-wise, year-on-year-wise. How many of us dedicate our time to read about? I am not a criminologist. Criminal side is not my side. It's not my cup of tea, and I don't read it. And if I am a criminologist, I am a student of criminology, or I'm a faculty of criminology, I don't have time. I have time for other things, but I don't have time to read these particular until and unless it is forced on me through my faculty to do a research, collecting a data from there and analyzing a data from there. We have to have this. How many of you are aware of the NJRD? Just raise your hands, please. NJDG, sorry. Many of them do not know the full form of NJDG. It's National Judicial Data Grid. Which gives you data about the various courts, the status of the cases, and many more things in that. Have you ever gone to the website and tried to find out what? No. There are n number of students and faculties who have not even visited the websites of the High Court of their respective states, the Supreme Court. They don't know how to find out a case. These are the basic things that each and every college have to teach to their students and faculty. How to go to the website of a particular court and find out what is the status of that particular case, what is the latest order passed in that case. When we teach practical papers, we fail over there. As part of the Bar Council's mandate, colleges, institutes, universities, they have n number of subscriptions, but how many subscriptions are being used by these particular students? How many colleges, how many institutes have dedicated lectures where really the teachers take the students into the library, give them a task to find out a particular thing and write something on it? Yes, tutorial lectures are there, but I very well know what happens in tutorial. Teachers are overburdened. Timing of colleges are very long. Teachers have to do administrative work. Students are, working somewhere part time. So after the X amount of time, After 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, students do not wait into the college. Then how do we assure that my fine product that comes out from my institute has the best of the best knowledge until and unless that knowledge is sharpened? Why always the tutorial lecture is kept as the last lecture in any of the institute? Why library is the last lecture? Why not the second lecture or the first lecture? These are some things that we need to understand. If you want really the gem to be grown in my institute, the institute have to change over here. Literature. Now, does literature means only legal documents, legal literatures? How many colleges, how many institutes have the pattern wherein, on the gap or a break, apart from internship, we ask the student to go and sit in a court, observe the court for 2 days, 3 days, and give us a report. What are the cases that you have observed? What were the most important part of your observation? Do we do that? Reading of the literature. We need to train the students how these literatures are to be accessed. What are the sources from where we will get this literature as handy literatures? Are we really going in that field, in that direction? I'm sorry. Contributions that comes out from these all things have to be made. It has to be recorded. One of the most worst thing is our researchers when they go anywhere for their research, findings and everything. Many of them do not carry a note. They think that their brain is so sharp that they will remember each and everything. They are reluctantly writing. They may be having a notepad in their hand, but I don't know what they may table. Now we have to do a survey of the available literature. So how do I fund it? Take a simple example. I have to do a research on IPR products and its usages in the Indian sports. So I should know very first thing, what are the different sports in India? From where will I come to know about? There are some sports which are run through federations. There are some sports which are traditional sports, not run at all, not seen at all. But still they are enjoyed. They are being, very much played as sports. I need to find out first that. What accessories are used in that particular sport? I have to then take some samples and wherein I will do a research in that particular sports only. May it be football, may it be hockey, may it be badminton. What are the various equipments that are being used? Equipment may be the sports gear. It may be the type of or the style of the cloths that are being used or the fabric that are being used. The various devices that are being used, hockey sticks, shuttlecocks, and other things. The shoes used by the sports person. Back end where he does his training, what are the things that are being used over there? For example, in cricket, we have a machine that throws the ball. The various bats that are being made, are they patented? What are the styles that it is? Which country is the one which has a maximum patent in this particular area? Does that patenting has increased the price of that particular product in the market? Do they have any type of monopoly in the market? We need to look. Now, this is one of the questions where our researchers are taken for toss. What I have to review and for what purpose? Yes, it is something like you are in a gamut of things and from there you have to pick a name. This is purely based on your skill. If really you have flair or interest in your topic, you know exactly what you are supposed to do or what you are doing, then this will be the most easiest task for you. But if at any stage you feel that no, I am confused, your directions are not fixed, you will be in a doldrum. Until and unless you you have the topic confirmed, the approach roads towards that topic are clear in your mind, you will not be able to, you know, do the proper review of the literature. After you have the sources from where I am going to take the various data, primary data, secondary data, what type of research I am going to conduct, whether it will be qualitative research or quantitative research, what will be the type of various matrices that I will be making available. I'm sorry. Then I go on selecting. It is something like going into a supermarket with a list in your mind that I have to buy these all things. As soon as I go, then I come across multiple brands providing that particular product. I have to select which one will be available. You may go by the name of the thing, you may go by the price of the thing, you may go by the publicity of that particular product. So you select that, that becomes a basket for you for your business. Once you have the basket of the material with you, our researchers fail to retrieve the data again. This is a common thing that happens. You sit on the internet, you browse something from some sources, okay, and after 2 months, if you are again supposed to, to go back to that particular thing, you try to find it out again. Make down notes of it, have records of it. Very good to have it in soft copies. If you are accessing any website, please maintain a record of that in soft copies. Copy the URL of that particular website. Write something brief about that particular thing. What was the title that you have searched, on which particular date you have searched. Copy the URL and keep it. This will help you even in bibliography, even in your citations in future. Then coming to the next thing, that is selection of the research project. Once you have the material, it was something like, you were preparing for a battlefield. Now you have the arms and ammunitions in your hand, and now you have to start with execution of. Once you have all the reports, read the literature reviews, and after that, start with the literature review, which will be in the form of writing. Start writing. So if you have the resources, if you have the materials, you have your bullet points ready, it will be very easy to write. Next, there has to be a reason for a. Now, when I talk about the reasons of a research, it is something what is very much related to the purpose of the research. What should be these reasons? Talking about the background knowledge. For example, whenever you have your dissertations, one common question asked by any guide to his researcher: has anybody done any research in this particular area? Have you gone through anybody or anything? Have you come across any research which talks about this particular topic? So that background. So you are ready with the background of the research. You have to identify the concepts that are related. Now, what concepts are we talking about? These are the concepts related to the relative topics to your particular research. Now, again, one question comes like, if I am doing a particular research and I say that I am trying to find out the status of the child labor abuse in the city of Mumbai. Next question, why only in Mumbai? Why not Mumbai and Navi Mumbai? Why not Mumbai and Thane? Both are close to each other, densely populated. Why not entire of Maharashtra? When you are identifying your concepts, it will help you out in giving these all reasons, which can be in the form of further scope of research for others. The relations between the concepts. Now, when I talk about the relationship between the concept, if I am talking about child labor and their abuses, there can be more than abuse. Am I talking about abuse by the person who has employed them, abused by somebody else, or I'm talking about their exploitation? There's a difference between abuse and exploitation. That clarity of the concepts have to be there. And if it is to be mixed up together, then I should have a clear understanding how it will help out in my research and how will I relate between the two things. One of the most difficult tasks for any researcher, especially students, is formulating of hypothesis. Please understand, hypothesis is not a problem. General perception, general notion that the scholars have that hypothesis means I am talking about a problem. Hypothesis is your finding. I believe there is a session where hypothesis will be dealt with. So I am not going to touch this particular aspect over there, or else it will be an infringement on somebody else's topic. Hypothesis is the most important part of your research. Generally, this is being described in the first chapter itself, where your entire research depends upon testing of your hypothesis and the result of the hypothesis. This testing and the result of the hypothesis will be giving you the outcome of your research. Your research will go right or wrong. Everything depends on hypothesis. Next, literature review gives me an appropriate method. What type of data am I collecting? From which sources I am collecting? Primary data, secondary data, whether it is an online data and offline data. I should also have the authenticity of the data. I take the data from Wikipedia and I mention that in my research. My research guide goes back to that particular citation of Wikipedia. He reads that. By the time when he reads that particular paragraph on Wikipedia, somebody has already changed that particular paragraph or amended that particular paragraph. Some addition or deletion has been done. So my citation of that particular content from Wikipedia is that authentic. any content of Wikipedia, when we see, there is a disclaimer giver in the bottom saying that the authenticity of the content of this particular content on the website, the website do not take any responsibility of the authenticity. When the place from where I am referring, it is not taking the the onus of the content. How can it be an authenticated thing? We need to understand this. A research design. Now again, I believe there is a session which will be covering research design also. But when I talk about research design, yes, it is something like the skeleton of the human being. How will my research go? Introduction, literature review. From there, how will it proceed back and down? And the last will be the conclusion, suggestions. In this research design, I should be handy with my research design, because when I do my literature review, which portion of the literature review will help me out in which particular section of the skeleton or the research design of my content or my research, that will play a very important role. Next, methods of measuring concepts. Again, it talks about the various tools or the mechanisms that will be used to validate the data that I have been using in my research. Techniques of analysis. When I talk about technique of analysis of the data, again I am talking about the various additional sources. It may be a source like SPSS or any other uh, technique or software or method that I will be using to come to the conclusion or to the findings, not conclusion, but findings of my data sources to be used. I will be dealing with this in detail again in my further slides. But again, when I talk about data sources, authenticity of the data source is one of the important parameters that I should understand. Structuring of it, how it will be and in what form. How the reports will go. What should be placed first? Like every chapter when we write, the chapters should have an introduction to it. Main body to it, conclusion. Next, coming to the forms of literature. Most important when we talk about literature review. What can be different forms? Books, textbooks, monographs, plenty available. Plenty and plenty available. Books go somewhere between 100 pages to 1000 pages and 1200 pages. Are we going to read the entire book? Are we going to borrow a part or a section from that particular book? How will we use that? This is the most important. I say that yes, in literature review, I've gone through MP Jain Constitution of India. My MP Jain, I get students edition also, and MP Jain I get as a reference book also. I get the major MP Jain in volumes, which comes into 3 volumes for the Constitution of India. Which one am I talking about? What particular part, what particular section of that book is relevant to my particular topic? I need to understand. Text, again, it's short notes. It can be private notes of an institute, something like that. Next, coming to the reference books. Now, again, gamut of reference books are there. When we talk about reference books, one thing most important we need to understand. Are we talking the entire content of that particular book, or we are restricting ourselves to the section of that? It is very easy when we talk about Constitution of India, CRPC, CPC, IPC. We are doing a research on a particular aspect from there, so I am concentrating on this particular chapter. But when I talk about some modern innovative techniques like artificial intelligence, I talk about space law, I talk about media laws, which are not codified in India. If I have to do a research on space law or sports law, we don't have much codified laws over here. So what section, what part of the book are we discussing, are we trying to find out from here? We need to pay attention to that. Journals and reports, I have said this again. Now, very first thing, the journals that are published by whom, the authenticity of the journals. When I come to the Indian publications, yes, very often we see that UGC, take example of UGC care itself. Today, this particular book is there in the UGC care list. And after some days, that particular book journal may not be the part of that particular UGC list because it is not following certain norms of it. Again, I have to be vigilant for acceptability of the content of that particular journal. I should know about the various reports that come out. Again, we should have the authenticity of these reports done before citing. We should citing it in my research newspapers. Now here it is very difficult to take newspaper as authenticated source. You come across the latest headline, every newspaper will have some or the other fact twisted and turned. Some newspaper will say there were 4 people involved. Some newspaper will say there were 3 people involved. Some say that they came on a scooter. Some say that they came on a bike. There is a difference between a scooter and a bike. So what authenticity can we have? How to quote them in a literature review? That is most important. Next, coming to media's web resource URLs. These are all part of the online sources. Divyank sir, please let me know if I'm crossing my time.
No, sir. You can like
Okay.
5 to
Yeah.
10 minutes will be okay.
Yeah, please. Thank you. Fine. So these are the forms of literature. There are many more forms. If you go into deep, okay, it will run into hundreds and hundreds of numbers when we go individually. I've just tried to make a gist of the most commonly available forms of literature. Next, coming to, yeah, this is one of the most recent edition, social networks and microphones. Now again, on social networks, many news comes. Nowadays, thanks to the great WhatsApp and other sources, wherein we have groups of students, groups of teachers, group of researchers, group from the within the institute, personal group, and everywhere this, the communication happens. In that, we have to be very much, be sure about the authenticity of this particular availability of social media. Just one. Sorry. Fine. Next, the most important thing what I was talking about is the sources of literature. From where to find. I have listed very few sources, to be speaking very frankly, which are general informed, not specific related to a specific topic or a subject or a field. Very first thing, talking about library catalogs or National Documentation Center. Nowadays, there are many libraries and many documentation centers which have online access given to its documents and sources to the people. Many institutes have open library system which students can access from anywhere. Many books have been, scanned and kept over there, which the students can easily make it available for them for their reading. No need of borrowing the books physically from the library, having a time limit for that, and then giving it back. There are provisions made for downloading of these particular book copies also. Asiatic Society is one of the best, but they restrict the access of the data only to their members. American Central Library, the British Council Library, even they have started disseminating the data on online mode, but it is restricted to their members only. Again, yes, some libraries do not allow downloading of the book, okay, wherein they have created a shelf. Asiatic Library is one of the best example of that, where if you are a member of that, you can take a book and there are certain books which are not allowed to be downloaded from the archives. So you can read that book, you can keep that in your personal shelf, you can mark the page, you can underline the page, it will be there in your shelf for that particular period. And as soon as you complete, you can return back. As soon as the book goes back, all your marking and all are by system automatically erased and the book goes back to the shelf as it was. some very great and innovative ideas taken from the original British Council Library in UK. Next is bibliographies. In India, specifically speaking, people make very less use of bibliographies. Very less. But if you see in Europe and America, bibliography plays a very important role. Many people get the access to various data through the bibliographic sources. They go to the bibliography. If so for example, I'm going through a research paper, which is a topic related, semi-related to my particular interest of research, I'll go to the bibliography. I will first read that paper, that particular paper, see the bibliography from where that particular aspect has been taken by that particular author, go to the main source and refer to that particular source. That will give me a better insight of my topic. Library of Congress, again, this is a concept from the United States of America. One of the most publicized, I will say, that is popular. One of the most popular libraries is the Library of Congress over there, which have one of the biggest collection of the archives in the world. Yeah, publishers catalog. Now again, extremely sorry to say that especially in the Indian subcontinent, we failed for this. You go to the American and the British libraries, British college libraries. For example, the Lincoln's Inn or whatever big names we call as Oxford, Cambridge, Pennsylvania, anyone. Here you will find the catalogs of the publisher available with the library. How many of our library does have the catalogs of the publishers? Leave apart, the librarians do not have the list of the publishers available from where they are buying the books. Today, if the principal calls the librarian and say that, "Madam, ye publisher ka address or number chahiye," the librarian will sit and go through the bills, and then he or she will try to find it out. We have not cataloged that. Not only law libraries, but I am talking about in general majority of the library. If you want to see the publisher's catalog, go to IGRD in Borivali, Indira Gandhi Center for Research and Development. Best way they have done. Please have this particular publishers' catalogs are available with Tata Institute of Social Science Library, the Central Library of Tata Institute. To an extent, yes, some catalogs are available with the Jawaharlal Nehru Library at our Kalina campus also. But that's very restricted and that are also very old, not updated. These all things brings the researchers to the, towards the books. Government reports. Yes, earlier when the reports were published by the government, the colleges used to send the, the team member to the government press, pay them the fees and get that and file it and keep it. Nowadays, everything is available online. But how many of we take the responsibility of downloading that particular reports? Copy of budgets are available online. How many colleges, how many institutes have the budgets soft copy available with them? Finance is not a legal aspect. Central budget we are very much aware of. How many of the institutes have the state budget soft copies with them? I can understand this when it was not available in soft copy. Nowadays, the data are available in soft copy. It is the empathy. Sorry to say, the institutes do not maintain the record of the past year's question papers. Then government reports are something very different. I may be sounding critic, but that is the fact. So when I talk about government reports, yes, there are many number of reports. Colleges have to take initiatives of downloading the bills that have been presented in the Lok Sabha, in the Rajya Sabha, in the state assemblies. Colleges have to have an open house where students will debate on that particular bill. Why not we take an initiative to take this ahead, download these particular things and make a report of it and send to the respective government that our students feel this bill has to have these particular changes, amendments. There are a number of people who can guide us on this. Yes, changes can be brought in, but we should know from where it has. Indexes and abstracts, these are most important things. When I talk about abstracts, yes, it plays a very important role, especially when we write a research paper. Without an abstract, a research paper is not accepted anywhere. It is the abstract which gives us the gist of the entire research. Your research acceptance or approval to go ahead with the research comes from your abstract. Now, how do we search a review? And from where? Once I have done any particular research, I need to request my peers, I need to discuss the same with my experts. Wherever we have these dissertations, in Mumbai University, you don't have dissertation at UG level, but at PG level, we do have LLM. Do we have a sessions where a student discuss about his particular status of his research with his peers and his teachers? Dissertation is a paper. Why don't we have a dissertation as a class every week? A 2-hour class every week in the lecture, wherein each and every student will discuss his or her dissertation topic, what is his or her progress, and what is his current stage. Why not he discuss with his peers? He may get some new innovative idea from his friends also. They might have come across something in their day-to-day life, or through while doing their research, they might have come across some sources which would have been helpful for the other people. This interactive sessions is very much important, and it do happens in the European and the American countries. Australian universities, without this, the research is not complete at all. The first class of the dissertation talks about what topic you are taking and why you are taking. Come and talk in front of other things, and the other students and the teachers, they all ask questions on it. Why this? How this? What you will do in this? But I sorry to say that we don't have such ideas or some things. Such innovations are not promoted in India. Sorry. How do we access to the secondary sources? Majority of the researches that we come across is based on the secondary sources. That is a research material which is already available in the form of books, journals, reports, whatever we were talking about earlier. How to access them? Nowadays, our students, they come across their friends, they will say, I am doing a research on this. Okay, I have this particular book, come on, go through it. One student sends a soft copy to another student and he starts reading, he sends it to the third person, to the fourth person. Is that a proper way? Have you taken permission from the publisher to use this soft copy and send it to the second person again, forward it? Isn't it the infringement on the copyright of that particular author and the publisher? Nowadays, there are some brilliant students. They take this copy of from the library, they scan the entire book, and they start circulating among their friends. Is that allowed? We all are large pages, and we do that. Need to think on it. From where to find, how to find, that is a big thing. You go to the Xerox wala and Xerox the entire book, make a spiral binding and keep it for your further readings. Infringement of copyright. Yes, for study purpose you can Xerox, but only the relevant parts, not the entire book. How many of us are aware? And even if we are aware, तो चलता है ना. That is the attitude. Yes. Identification of the list of theses and dissertation. Now, this plays a very important. When we are doing a literature review, we are thorough with our topic. We have shortlisted certain materials. Okay. Then I have gone through certain theses that I will be referring this particular thesis. I will be referring to this particular dissertation from Shodh Ganga, Shodh Gangotri, or Oxford, Cambridge, or other university sources, online source. Identification of these particular research thesis or dissertation is very important. But I should be in a position to note and understand whether it is relevant to my particular topic. I am doing a research on geographical indication, and any thesis in which I see the title IPR, I take it and I put it as reference in my particular research, so that my list of bibliography and references goes into hundreds and hundreds of numbers. Exactly had I accessed that particular thesis, that particular dissertation. That is what one needs to think about. Library online catalog this I have discussed in the last slide also. Online sources plays a very important. Majority of the college institutes and universities have Manupatra, LexisNexis, right? Where downloading facilities are there, where reading facilities are there, marking facilities are there, modern things are there, modern innovations. But again, usages, relevance, that is most important. Scanning of the primary sources. Now, this scanning doesn't mean copying of the primary source. If my research is based on the primary sources, I should scan or I should finalize my target audience. That is what we are talking about. Citations and references. Now, different institutes, different universities have their own styles of citation. Some may approve for API, some may approve for the blue book, black book, some may approve for the Indian citations. I don't know how many of you are aware that we have an Indian citation index also. What is the difference between the various citation indexes? A researcher should be aware of. Abstract review and indexes. It is a repeat from the last slide. But when we do a search, we also search the abstracts and the review. It's very important, as I said earlier also. An abstract gives us an idea what will be the content in the entire paper or the research that I'm going to refer at. Next, I need to plan the review. And when I say planning of a review, what am I referring to? Here, the researcher have to ask himself or herself certain questions. The first question, what is the usefulness of it? Will it be useful or not? If it is yes, keep it. If it is no, exclude it. Please do not throw away anything that is not of your need. Do not delete the files. If you feel it is not needful, make a separate folder and put it over there. In future, sometimes it may happen at future further stage, you may feel that that will be more relevant and that can be used in a next stage or in some other chapter somewhere. So never delete or throw away any material till your research is completed, published and
Uh,
certified.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. Sir.
Yeah, yeah. Could you please wind up in a 5 minutes because another speaker is actually waiting in the waiting room.
Okay, sir.
And
Okay,
yeah,
okay. Sir.
thank you. Sorry, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's okay. Yeah. Fine. Then it talks about how to record and gather the resources, classification and organization of the reviews, taking a note of the things, and last is summarization and correlations. So when we plan, we have to plan it accordingly, gather the resources, classify them as to which particular review will be fitting in which particular section of my research. Next, talking about again the further structures, that is, review of the researchers are reality a type of research. Yes, when we talk about the review, it is really a research in itself. The body of the research, it should contain some material which will be of use for others in future, like abstracts, introduction, methods that are being used, the results, the discussions, and last the conclusion. This has to be the, see, because this is what is when we talk about when literature review is added as a separate chapter in your research. Fine. So this has to be, this is a standard body, how it should content and what all it should content. When literature review is written as a part of one of the chapters, generally as we follow in India, chapter one of our Indian research generally have literature review as one of the topics. So we start with the introduction where we give a quick idea about the topic of the literature review, and then we go to the body of the literature review where we talk about the various discussions, various papers and the citations, and comes to conclusion and recommendation. One thing let me say you over here, the type of literature review that we do will vary from institute to institute, and it will also vary from place to place. For example, generally, if you do a UG research, it is expected that minimum 10 books, 10 to 15 research papers, some 4 to 5 articles, and 5 to 10 journals. When you come for a PG, maybe MPhil or LLM, the number becomes double. When you come for your PhD, the number becomes 2.5 times of that. Next, when the literature reviews, I'll just go a bit fast, is not to be considered as a literature review. When it is annotated as a bibliography, it is unrelated to the sources. The survey of the authors, bios, list, work, summaries of the sources, background informations, and argument for importance of your research. When that are things are there, at times it is considered that the literature review is not to be considered. And what are the features of a good literature review? It has to be focused so that it takes you in a direction. It has to be concise, short and sweet, and it has to have a logic. When we talk about logical, it has to be focusing on the progression of the ideas from one idea to the another idea. It has to be developed, to be focused on the development. That is, the entire story has to be narrated. It has not to be something like a half-told story. It has to be integrative. Integrative again, we are talking about. It has to connect with each other, and it talks about the latest things. When we do legal research on the web, we need to identify the sources of the web, identify the subscription base for conducting the legal research. If the legal research it's not being testified by the authenticity of the website, your results will be always negative. Web-based research are are good for only current and recent documentation, not for the old ones. I'll come to that slide again very fast. The significant are the recent cases of the Supreme Court, federal and state courts, statutes and regulations, government publications, foreign and international materials. These are the some of the parameters or some of the areas where legal research on the web are very much useful for or very good for. But again, it is not good in case where it is old cases or historical materials, because again here the authenticity is a problem, because it is all scanned and the authenticity, there are instances where some issues have been created. Full text of the journal articles, treatise, complete view of the law and in-depth thought through legal research. When we talk about subscription-based database, it is good for full text articles, law reviews, and some of the treaties, not all. Retrospective and current articles of the cases, again, it is useful over there. When we talk about the secondary sources like treaties, law reviews and articles, encyclopedia and dictionary. How to locate a resource for literature review? It can be from annual reviews like the Cambridge University, Oxford University reviews, Emerald or George. Okay. Heine Online Law Research Database, I believe very few of them will be aware of this, heard about these particular databases. Open Access Database, Doja, NIS Care, Online Repository, eBooks, bookbaboon.com, ebook dictionary, legalbooks500.com. These are some of the authenticated, resources. LawTube, YouTube, Law, e-theses and dissertations. Everybody knows about YouTube, but very few of them are aware of that there is a separate channel called YouTube Law. Shodhganga, British Library e-thesis, courseware, MIT Open Courseware, Coursera, e-Pathshala, case reports, publication, International Court of Justice, Supreme Court of India. These are some of the authenticated e-sources from where we can take good literature. I believe I have overspilled my time. I'm extremely sorry for that. With this, if you want, I can take one or two questions, or you can put it to me on my chat box or my mail. I will be replying to it later, depending on what the organizer thinks fit. And thank you again for giving me this opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. If anyone has questions, please put it in chat box. We'll convey it to sir. There is one question, sir, in the chat box. Will the PPT be shared for the reference? One of the participants is asking for your PPT. Okay.
Yeah, I will send it to the institute. The institute can share it to them.
Okay. I request Amar sir to give vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. I, Assistant Professor Amar Salve, feeling very honored to extend my formal vote of thanks on this occasion. Firstly, I would thank our very supporting management team, Dr. Rajendra Singh sir, President of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti, Dr. Usha Mukundar ma'am, Director of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti, our Honorable Principal ma'am, Dr. Mrs. Madhura Karamkar ma'am, for your valuable guidance and support. My sincere thanks to our session speaker, Dr. Khan sir. Sir, you have given very clear insight about how to write literature review technicalities, and you have said about the source also. We have actually enlightened with your session. We have gained the complete insight over how to write literature review. Thanks once again, sir. I would like to thank here all teaching, non-teaching, technical support team. I would thank all participants who actually attended very patiently this session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Amar sir. Now I request Assistant Professor Tejal ma'am to introduce our next guest speaker, Mr. Abhishek Negi.
Tejal madam, you are not audible. Start.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Abhishek Negi is an assistant professor of law at Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai. He began his academic journey from DNLU Jabalpur as teacher associate in law in 2018 and later taught as assistant professor of law in Katni Arts and Commerce College, DNLU Jabalpur, and Department of Legal Studies at Mangalayatan University, Jabalpur. He cleared UGC NET Law in 2019. He is also pursuing doctoral studies from Sri Krishna University, Chhattarpur, MP. In the domain of criminalization studies, his research and teaching interest includes criminal law, tort law, constitutional law, legal theory, administrative law, etc. He has his credit good publication in reputed journals and has also written book chapters and op-eds. He has also authored a handbook on criminal trial, which is under process for publication. He is also part of a national level project on police system in India, sponsored by Menon Institute of Legal Advocacy and Training, as co-investigator for the state of Madhya Pradesh. During his previous work experience in different academic institutions, he has also shouldered various administrative responsibilities. We welcome you, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. And thank you everyone for giving me this opportunity. Am I audible and visible too?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. So hello everyone, and this is Abhishek Singh Negi, and today I've been given the responsibility to talk about defining research problem. So basically, first of all, to start with the research problem, I think research problem is the genesis of every research, because if I ask you that, for example, who is the Prime Minister of India, then I don't think that anyone can say that this is a researchable question or research problem, because everyone knows that who is the Prime Minister, and there's a objective answer to this, because it is based on a fact. And the fact is that Prime Minister means Mr. Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister of India. But if I ask you that who is the best Prime Minister of India, then I am sure that not everyone will agree on one person, right? People have different criterias, and out of those two different criterias, people must be having different answers. And why the variation is there, and that the variation is there because of the basic fact that how do we define research problem is the concern, because this research problem is actually basically deals with the research gap. So basically, if you want to research on something, suppose, and so the question starts with that, why do you want to research on something? And the basic reason why I want to research on some topic or some area is because that I do not have, first of all, a solution to this, and I have found out a research gap in the existing understanding. And since I have found the research gap, now my work is to deal with the research problem. So research problem basically talks about the research gap. Now, with the help of my own research problem and my own, which I presented in Nalsar, basically, actually, I shifted my PhD from SKU University to Nalsar University of Law, Hyderabad. And the PPT which I used there, I would like to use here also to substantiate my point and to make you understand that why research problem is important, how to define a research problem, how to make a research problem, and what role a research problem has in overall research journey of a researcher. So basically, I'm going to share the screen with you. Please tell me if the screen is visible after this. Is this visible now, the screen?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Visible. All right. So basically, my work was on. Okay, so my suppose for example, I'm researching on basically a topic called pre-immigration. Pre-immigration basically uh, is a confluence of criminal law and immigration law. And now, suppose, for example, I am reading about immigration and I got to know that there are certain research gaps and research lacunas in which there is no clear-cut answer or there is an apparent problem with regard to it, right? Then my research proposal begins because the research problem, the research proposal is basically establishes the research gap first, right? So Professor Amita Randa, when I was asking her the question about how to get the solutions, so she said that instead of actually focusing on the solution, the basic aim of a researcher is to locate the problem first. So in India, basically, every researcher faces this problem that we generally jump into the conclusions, we generally jump into the solutions, right? We already have a presupposed solution generally, and then we try to extract the problem. But as a researcher, we first of all know that how to find the research gap or how to find the problem, because unless you could not be able to establish the research problem, the research gap, you could not be able to get the solution, or the solution which you would get might not be a holistic solution. So first of all, it is very important to know the research gap. So for example, how to know the research gap, because it is very important to in the research problem to know the research gap, to know that where is there is no research going on, or where the research which was conducted before your research, it was based on some flawed idea or ideology. So first of all, you need to trace out the research gap. And how can you trace out the research gap? You can trace out the research gap through the review of literature. So basically, I have a very pertinent problem with regard to the UGC's understanding of writing a research paper or PhD, in which they have specifically mentioned about literature review. But I think that your whole dissertation and your whole thesis is actually a research literature review. So literature review should not be a step, but research review is actually is present everywhere, right? For example, if I want to extract research problem, how to define research problem, even then also I would be needing research literature review, because ultimately I need to read about the topic, so to find out the research problem, to find out the research gap. So for example, if I take my example in which how I actually handled my research proposal here, I went back to the books available and the articles available, and I got to know that, sir, in India, there is no proper immigration law which actually defines immigration. And why I'm telling you this, because I read about the pertinent acts, the acts of empire, which is called the three important act of immigration law. And then I got to know that, sir, in India, there is no difference between a monk who's coming to India from Tibet and a Rohingya who is coming from Myanmar to India. Right. So there is no difference. The law does not differentiate between both of them. But in reality, we know that there is a difference between both of them, their statuses and their rights and all. Right. So why it is happening? Because we do not have a proper legislative intent as to the acts or rules. And since we do not have a proper legislative intent, which could be shown in the court of law, it is now the ball is on the court of the executive to see that whether the how to treat the two immigrants differently. So I got to know that there is a research gap, research problem. Now, how to, first of all, if I got to know that there is a research gap or research problem, my next target is that after I found out that, okay, after reading this, all this, I found out that, sir, okay, this is the research problem, right? Research, after extracting the research problem or research gap, in which I have told you that, first of all, you have to do a thorough study or literature review to know the background of the research, right? So far, how much research has been conducted when you entered the research field, you must know that. After knowing that, yes, these are the literature available in my topic, and after reading them, if you have the problem or if you could be able to extract out the gap, now the third question, the third act which you as a researcher, which you should do, is finding a wall, right? So I means when I was undergoing my coursework, PhD coursework, there was a very good professor, Professor Raghu. Professor Raghu said that after finding a research gap, the most important step in research problem is to find the wall. As to, for example, if you want to showcase your research could be showcased when you will find a nice concrete wall in which you will put a nail of your research, and then you will showcase your research. Meaning thereby that you must first of all know the theories and the concepts involved before doing your research. For example, if I want to do research on immigration studies or immigration studies, the wall which is available to me is the acts of empire, the present act, the contemporary act of India, in which I'm going to base my research. So first of all, you need to, in a research, in defining a research problem, you need to first of all locate the research gap. First of all, you need to read the literature. That means literature review is here also very important. So to know the background. After knowing the background, after doing a thorough literature review, the second step is finding the research gap. After reading substantially, you will get to know that, yes, this is the research gap and these are the lacunas which I got to know. And now, basing on those research gap, my wall or my theory on which I'm going to base my research is on these premise. So first of all, the background, then the gap, and then the research wall. Why research wall is important? Because if you see, every good writer has actually based his or her research problem on hello.
Sir, you can carry on.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Is there any question or something? Hello.
No, sir. No, sir. You
Okay.
can carry on. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, the third issue is the third step is basically about the finding the research gap and then finding the wall. And after finding the wall, after finding the theory on which you're going to base your whole research, now the next step which is important is the analysis of the concepts. When I before joining the PhD course, I had this idea that theory is not that important as compared to the practical angle of the research, and I was with this assumption that it is very important to do the practical research and go to the field and take the data and collect the data and analyze the data. But when I did my coursework, I got to know that theory is very important. I think the most important tool which every researcher is going to use is the theories which is there with him or her. theories, for example, basically when I was researching on the immigrants crisis and how Rohingyas are coming to India and what kind of treatment they are getting, whether people are getting the enough basic facilities in the shelter homes the uh, or the prison or the immigration centers. I got to know that now I would be needing theories or the concepts which are relevant for my research. For example, one of the theory which I took the help is of personhood, right? So, for example, in research problem itself, you must be knowing the theory. You must have a theory with you prior hand so that you could be able to base your research problem on that theory. And after basing the research problem on your theory, on the theory, now you will have a robust idea about the research problem. So research problem is basically a gap which is going to be filled by your research, or you are going to analyze only the contemporary lacunas. So it is not only that a researcher should always try to give the solution in his research. It is also important that if you could be able to find out the problems or new domains of problem or new contemporary problems, or to establish or recognize the problems, that itself would also suffice a purpose, because I think research is a continuous process. It is not that I'm researching only because of my PhD. I am researching because I know that this the solution which I would be aiming for cannot happen in a fortnight, or cannot be provided in one or two research or PhD. So basically, the research problem should be seen from a holistic point of view, in which you will first of all you have to trace down the research gap or the area on which you are going to research, right? For example, as I've already told you that my research is basically based on immigration crisis, right? But how I got into immigration crisis is because I got to know that there are gaps, because I read a newspaper article in which it was written that a Bangladeshi woman was being sent to prison by Bangalore police, because she was not having sufficient document to prove to show the valid visa. And in the name, see, in the presentation also, if you could be able to read the last line, the research problem on which going to base my whole research is on the line that the process becomes the punishment. So when I read the article, and I researched upon the available literature, I got to know that there are certain processes in which they are nothing less than a punishment. Because, for example, that Bangladeshi woman was first sent to the prison, and then from that prison, when she spent something around 4 to 5 months there, she was being sent to BSF, because BSF was the authority which deals from India to Bangladesh authorities, and they exchange the immigrants via means through border with the help of the BSF and Bangladeshi authorities. So then I got to know that in the BSF camp also, that lady had to spend another 4 or 5 months. So that means in this whole 11 to 13 months, she was actually not being punished, but the process in which she was involved, that process itself is a punishment. So I found out that this is a research problem, because this in India, this is not even established as a punishment. So in the name of process, she was being punished, and she has no right. She has nobody to protect her. And lastly, when High Court got to know about this via writ by a pro bono lawyer, Then High Court took the cognizance, and then High Court said that release her on bail, right? So without even starting a proper criminal trial, she had to spend somewhere around 11 to 13 months in a jail. And then this, I found out that this is a research gap. So I started with, again, as a novice researcher, I started giving the solution that the state must come up with the government must come up with the act, the government must come up with the rule, proper legislation, there should be a proper legislation, and this and that. And then I wrote this to Juliet Stump, who actually she coined the word. She's a professor in America. She coined this word immigration when she wrote the letter to President of United States. And I mailed her and said that I think this should be the solution. And then I got the mail, and she said that, Abhishek, whatever you're suggesting from a very narrow point of view, because according to you this should be the solution, but I think you should first of all trace the problems, the indigenous problems related to India, and trace down all the research gaps with whatever possible from your end. And in your PhD, if you could be able to even establish the research gap, then I think your work is done. You should not be aiming for the solutions. And then I realized, and then I discussed also with Professor Mitadanta that is it okay then that a researcher is not going to provide the solution, but rather tracing the research gap, because the research problem is that big that in one PhD it is not going to be covered, or in one article it is not going to be covered. Or if I could be able to give the solution or cover the problem, then I could be a possibility that I could not be able to justify my research. And then she said that it is very important to ask the relevant question first. And then I realized that in research problem, in defining research problem, it is always important not to answer, but to question the relevant point, right? And then I realized that no, as a researcher, one should not jump into the solutions or to answer, but to ask the relevant question. And then the moment you will ask the relevant question, for example, if I take the example that who is the best prime minister, the research problem which I'm going to I should be defining here is that what are the criterias on which I would say that who is the best prime minister of India. Could be a possibility that my basis is regard to the international relations, and when the basis is my basis is on the criteria is based on international relations, my answer could be different, right? And suppose, for example, my criteria is, as per my research, the best prime minister must have certain qualities, for example, aura, certain qualities, for example, education, certain qualities, for example, diplomacy, then my answer would be different. So could you be able to see that the solution or the answer is going to change with regard to the research problem or research gap? So it is very important to you as a researcher to find out or to establish the research problem or research gap. And how could be able to find out the research problem or research gap is only with regard to the help of the literature available to you. So as a researcher, a problem cannot be defined or cannot be established without the help of a literature. I hope that you have already had an elaborate discussion on literature review. And I really believe that literature review should not only be a stage in research, but it is actually there in everything when it comes to research. Because if you want to establish the research questions, even then also you need to first of all know the available literature, read those literature, and then establish that these are my research questions, right? So research problem here is actually not should not be framed only from the perspective of solution oriented, or should not be answer oriented, but rather it should be first of all should focus on the problem itself or a gap available, right? Since I have already told you that how to find out that gap, since I have already told you that it is very important to establish the gap, and I've already told you that after establishing the gap, if your research permits, then only you should go and indulge yourself in finding the solution. Because the moment you will find the solution, you will try to find the solution to that research problem, research gap. That means you're believing that that problem has been holistically covered by you, which I have seen time and again that many researchers they lack, because sometimes the problem is so big, right, that it could not be covered in one research problem, one research study, or one article. That is why I think it is very important again to narrow down the research problem, right? Since you have traced the gap, you have answered, you have tried to find out the problem, research problem, but now the problem is that your research gap is very broad, right, or absurd or vague. So that means now your duty is to use the correct words. For example, first, initially I used the word crisis in my research proposal or problem. And in my research problem, I used the word crisis. Then one of the very famous professors, she asked me that why I use the word crisis here. And I had no answer, because I knew that this crisis word could not be justified by me in this research problem. So selection of words in forming the research problem is very important, right? What kinds of words are you're going to use, how and your how means the how and in which way you're going to uh, write down the research problem. That is also very important, because time and again you will get to know, you will be hearing as a researcher that your research problem should be rephrased or remodified, or you should change the language, because language plays a very important role here in research problem, in establishing the research problem. Because the moment you will pick some other word assuming that they are synonymous to each other, could be a possibility that your research problem will change the direction, and then you'll be having problem after researching that no, this is not the way I started. And generally it happened that you started with a research problem and you ended up with different research problem, because time and again you resharpen your research abilities, and you uh, teach yourself also in the process of research, that the assumption which you had already had previously was not the same after doing the research. And also one very important aspect in formulating research problem is, for example, we have heard time and again that a researcher should be biased free, right? A researcher should have have an objective criteria. And I'm not saying that a researcher should not be having the objectivity, or should not be having bias, but I really believe that a researcher must have his or her own politics, right? Because the moment you will frame research problem, you will get to know that your research problem would be based on your own politics. And I do not hesitate myself in telling you that yes, I have my own politics, and every researcher has his or her own politics, and on the basis of that they research. Because the moment you will say that I am apolitical, that is also politics. So first of all, you have to establish this fact that as a researcher, since you are a human, you must be having your own choices and preferences. I'm telling you, yes, the objectivity should be maintained. That should not be the means. Your research should not concede to the object to the subjectivity. But I'm saying that you must establish this means, as a researcher, every research should establish this, that the research problem should be based on their own ideology, should be based on their own politics, right? But yes, having said that, you must also see that the purpose on which you're researching should not be based on any ideology, the purpose, right? But politics has to be there in formulating of the research problem. Now, having said that, that formulation of the research problem requires politics, and there are certain theories which are involved, which should be there, which should help you in formulating the research problem, because formulation of research problem also requires the theory. One very important thing which I missed initially, which I should be starting with, is the background. I think it is very important for you to understand the background of you of the topic of your research, right? Because if you would not be knowing the topics, because background, as in I'm talking about, one should trace the history also while before formulating the research problem, because history is actually, people say that history is his story, right? So that means, first of all, in narrating your own story, you must first of all know the background story, or the previous story of the people, or the previous research of the people, so that you could be able to base your own research on somebody else's research, right? Because there are two benefits. First of all, the benefit is that it will save time. Could be a possibility that the moment the research gap which you have found out, and you're thinking that that this research gap is basically, as per you, the is an untouched research gap. Could be a possibility that somebody else has also already researched about that, and you have not gone through that. Clear? So it is very important, not only to read the literature review, but also to analyze and to collect the literature available, so that you could be able to have an holistic approach while formulating the research problem. And how to narrow it down? You can narrow down your research problem only when you will know the background, the contemporary situation, and what is going to be in the future. Also, very important aspect which I would like to tell you as a researcher here is never assume anything, because research does not go with the assumption. You cannot assume anything prior hand, because the moment you will assume anything, then your research would not be seen as a research, but would be seen more of a conspiracy theory, right? So never assume anything, that this happens because of that happens because of that. Never assume anything when formulating a research problem. So so far are we clear with the formulation of the research problem, or is there any doubt or any question? Is the class with me?
Yes, sir, but yeah, if anyone has doubt, please put it in the chat box, because we have muted all of them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And I'm assuming that these are the PhD students or LLM students, or what?
No, they are BLS, LLB, and LLM students. It's a
Okay.
combination. Yeah.
Okay. So I was thinking that all these students are actually research means PhD students. Okay. Anyway, so this is so also in formulating the research problem, I think two important things, and one more very important thing which students generally ask me, sir, how to formulate the hypothesis, or sir, whether hypothesis is required or not. In research problem, I would like to establish this here, that hypothesis is only possible in socio-legal research. It is not possible in doctrinal research. So in doctrinal research, you cannot have hypothesis. Hypothesis can only be done in socio-legal research, in which you're going to have the primary data. You have to rely on the primary data. You have to go out, collect your own data. For that, you'd be requiring hypothesis, but otherwise hypothesis is not required in research problem. Right. And yes. So
Message आला त्यांचा.
hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Yes. What happened?
No, nothing, sir. Yeah.
Okay. So now two important things which then I think I'm going to wrap up, because from 12:30 I would be having a class. Two important things which in research problem, which is very important, is research question and research objective, right? Research question and research objectives. First of all, I would like to tell you that research objective is the motive of your research, right? On why you're doing your research. For example, my research objective I formulated is that to study the crisis of cremation in the Indian context through various paradigms of cremation control in India, right? So here, the moment I use crisis, I was being asked that why I use the word crisis here, because I already assumed that cremation is a crisis. That is why I said to study the crisis of cremation. Here, the question could be asked from you that why you have used the word crisis, because you cannot assume things like that, right? So you need to justify yourself that why you use that word. So basically, the objective is the motive of your research, that why you would like to do the research. My motive is to generally study the trend of crime cremation, or to study the structural impediments of the substantial or procedural legal issues involved in cremation, right? These are the research objective. Research question is basically when research objective is the motive of the research question is the intention of research, right? So this is research problem is very big. Research problem can be distributed with the help of research question. For example, if I'm going to ask myself 4 research questions, right? Through my research, if I had to answer all those 4 questions to come up with the conclusion, or to come up with the solution, or to come up with the analysis, right? How can I reach to the analysis? I can only reach to the analysis with the help of these questions. So while answering these 4 questions of research, I am now overall telling you, establishing that this is the research problem, and after establishing the research problem, I would be then answering to the problem of that research, right? That this is the research gap, and I think that this research gap is because of these things. So for example, my research question was, how does the domestic criminal law of Indian legal system interact with the immigration crisis in India, right? For example, is there any domestic criminal enactments, legislations, and if the domestic legislations are there, how an immigrant should be treated by them, right? Whether they have the jurisdiction to treat the immigrant or not. These things. For example, how does the phenomena of cremation amount to criminalization? Then again, here in the basic question of cremation, the criminal law comes into picture about over criminalization, the basic issue of criminal law. So in this way, my intent, I'm specifying my intent that on these lines I am going to research, right? And yes, and these things you're going to need the type of data or source of study. These things you're going to be your means this is helpful after establishing the research problem, that yes, this is the research problem gap, then objective and question, and then after all that you would be needing these data, that what kind of data you are going to collect, right? What are the whether you're going to take these stories or conduct the interviews, right? So these will come after establishing the research problem. So this is it from my side with regard to the research problem. I'm going to give you somewhere around 10 minutes to ask questions. So any questions, please tell me. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
If anyone has doubts, please put it in a chat box.
I'm assuming that they are typing over.
Yes, sir. There are, just wait, we'll wait for 2 minutes. I think some of them are typing.
Can a research be done through without hypothesis? Yes, obviously. Doctrinal research can be done through hypothesis. Hypothesis is okay. So first of all, since you have asked me this question that can a research be done without hypothesis, I'm assuming that you know what is hypothesis and you know how to formulate the hypothesis. Generally, I've seen many students, they do not know how to formulate an hypothesis because hypothesis must be having two variables, independent variable and dependent variable. Independent variable, for example, if I tell you that if I give you an example of hypothesis example, best one example which I usually give of hypothesis is that the increase of petrol prices decreases the sale of automobile, right? Here, for example, hypothesis is basically an assumption which you assume prior to your research, and in your conclusion, you would prove or disprove your hypothesis, right? Now, in hypothesis here, and since I've already told you that hypothesis requires two variables, independent and dependent. Who can tell me that what is the independent variable in this hypothesis? My hypothesis is that the increase of petrol prices has decreased the sale of cars, right? Which is the independent variable here? What should be? Anyone? I'll give you 2 minutes.
So there is one more question in the chat box. How to determine whether an empirical study is needed in a particular legal research?
Yes,
or
I've read it. I've read it. Since I was talking about hypothesis. Hypothesis is required variables. So here the independent variable is prices of petrol. The moment you will increase the prices of petrol, I'm assuming the sale of the cars will decrease, right? Great, petrol. Yes. So hypothesis is required. So how can I find out that prices of petrol actually leads to decrease in sale? I had to go outside to collect the data, primary data, and ask the petrol pump owners that whenever there is increase in petrol, what footfall you see, or go to the car manufacturer to know the data, that what is the data with, is there any data with them or not. So how I'm doing it? Because of the empirical research. Through the empirical research I'm doing it. What if, for example, I'm going to do the doctoral research? In doctoral research, hypothesis is not required, right? You can generally do hypothesis research of means doctoral research without the help of hypothesis, because hypothesis is not required generally, because variables की जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ती है. Clear? Now, how to determine whether an empirical study is needed in a particular legal research or the doctoral research will be sufficient. See, basically, it depends on your research problem, your research gap. If your research gap requires that you would be collecting primary data, then obviously empirical research is the solution. But if your data is if your research gap is on more on philosophy or jurisprudence, in which the analysis part is strong rather than the collection of data, then doctoral research is there, right? And it should be the sole criteria, so the sole prerogative of the researcher whether he or she should be going with the empirical research or doctoral research, right? Any other question?
So there is one more question in the chat box.
Okay, please read.
Yeah, so international commercial laws and its impact on Indian
Indian
laws
laws
is
in
my
my dissertation
dissertation
topic,
topic.
which I find is a broader research topic. Is there a way how can I narrow it down, or is there a need to whether I should narrow it down? International commercial laws in its this is actually a very broad topic. Why? Because international commercial laws, there are n numbers of international commercial laws. You need to specify on what specific law you're talking about. Impact, again, which impact you are going to talk about: economic impact, political impact, social legal impact, right? Clear. So impact is a very vague word here. You need to have specify what kind of impact you're going to talk about, right? Indian laws is again little vague here, because Indian laws, as in what law you're going to talk about, you need to specify that. So I think you can narrow it down by reframing this. Reframing as in, if you're talking about international commercial laws, then you need to specify what international commercial law you're talking about. Impact, as to what impact: economic, social, political, what kind of impact. And then Indian laws, that you cannot assume that people must be knowing that what kind of Indian laws you're talking about. Indian laws should also be specified. So I think I could be able to answer your question. Anybody else?
Okay, I think thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, clarified almost all the doubts. I request Tejal ma'am to give a vote of thanks.
I, Assistant Professor Tejal Chaudhary, on behalf of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti's College of Law, extend a hearty vote of thanks to our guest speaker for the day, Mr. Abhishek Negi. I would like to thank you for being an eloquent guest speaker for National Webinar on Research Methodology. It was indeed a privilege to have you here with us, sir. I would like to thank our management for giving us this platform to highlight this important lecture on research methodology. Sincere thanks to our Honorable President, Dr. Rajendra Singh, sir, Honorable Director, Dr. Usha Mukundan, Madam. Special thanks to Dr. Mrs. Madhura Kadampar, our beloved Principal Madam, without whose efforts and guidance this lecture would not be possible. I would further like to extend my thanks to IQAC Coordinator, Assistant Professor Amar Sarve, sir, and to all teaching and non-teaching support staff and technical team. Thanks to all the participants for being attentive listeners and active participants. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, everyone. And you can, I think I would be available to everyone via mail. So you can take my mail ID from Divyang, if possible, or through MNLU ID website, and you can shoot any amount of questions. I could, because I could be able to see that there are 2-3 questions which I could not be able to answer right now because of paucity of time. I would be having a class. So please mail me. I could be able to answer you there, I'm sure.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a request for all the participants. Our next guest speaker, Miss Mariangela Barletta, will join us in some time. So please wait. She will hear soon. So we'll wait for some time.
Divyang sir, I think madam have joined.
Yes, ma'am. I request Shriya ma'am to introduce our next guest speaker. Over to you, Shriya ma'am.
Thank you so much. It is my utmost honor to introduce our next speaker, who is Miss Mary Angela Barletta. She is a lawyer and a PhD candidate at La Sapienza University of Rome in Public Comparative and International Law. She is a lecturer and a co-organizer of the high specialization course on women, peace, and mediation at the same university. She also works as a teaching assistant and for the course on international law at the faculties of political science at La Sapienza and at the University of Tor Vergata in Rome. Please excuse my pronunciations. She holds master's degree in both law and international human rights protection and has completed different internships in Italy and other countries. For instance, at the Department of Biolaw of the Italian National Research Center. She also attended a number of international conferences, including the ESIL 2022 annual conference. Her areas of interest include human rights, international health governance, biolaw reproductive rights, and gender policies related to peace and security. Mary Angela, ma'am, thank you so much for joining us today. I would now like to request you to start your session.
Madam, you are
Thank
not
you.
audible.
Yes, now it works. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be here and to share some points of view, some experience from my side about academic research, academic methodology. It's really a pleasure every time to share this information with students. So my lesson will not be long, but I hope it will be helpful for you students that would like to write papers, essay, or thesis, and are experiencing this kind of period of your life. So first of all, I will not share slides because I didn't have time, but I hope you will try to take some points of what I will say. First of all, I would like to tell you what is important about research when you try to write something. So what's the first point that you have to focus on? So it's your question. And this is the most important part because when you think about your question, then you have to think also about your answer yet, even if before starting to write something. Why this is important? Because you, in your thesis, even if it's just an article, you have to show something. So if you don't know what you want to show, then it will be harder. So it's nice to start with a question and an answer, and then during your research, try to say that if that question was okay, it was like I thought at the beginning, or no, it's completely different. And that in that case, even if someone will tell you like why you choose this method or another, you can say that you choose that method because you were trying to demonstrate a determinate thing, even if then you approach in another side, let's say. And there are different types of methods. I think that before me, the professor illustrated yet something about research method. We can say there are three macro areas of methods: quantitative methods, qualitative, and mixed one. And I think, because I saw your brochure, tomorrow you will go deep into this kind of method, so for each one. But I will give you just a panoramica, and then I will try to show you some practical example from my side. We share some articles that I wrote when I use a quantitative method or a qualitative method, just to just to show you how you can manage something like this in your research. So a quantitative method is, I think, the most used in law research, that the thing that we used to do normally, because I know that you're a College of Law. Because when we use data, we are using quantitative method, that is an objective method. So we don't have an opinion about this data that we are collecting. We are collecting them to show, to demonstrate something. So it could be data from surveys or from statistic data or others that are data, but certain data. This is the difference with the other method, that is qualitative method. In this case, we have a subjective approach. We know that what we want to know about the other side, and with this method, we try to collect a kind of experience from the people. So there's nothing objective here, because we are collecting point of view, cultures, or something that it's linked with Anthropocene, let's say, no, with humans, with experiences. So it's completely different in this case, because in this case we can't demonstrate with extremely certain that what we collect is right, but it could be useful in our dissertation, in our thesis, that kind of experience. So the best way, I think, is to mix them, so the mixed method, because we can demonstrate something that is for sure corroborated with something that try to stay in line with what data say. So if I can share my video, I will show you like some articles that I wrote, in which I use both one and the other method. May I, Miss Madura, Dr. Madura?
No, madam, you can carry on.
Okay, thank you. Okay. One moment, that I have a lot of windows. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is an article that I wrote for an important Italian journal that is about biolaw. And I wanted at the beginning to demonstrate how the Directive 2010/63 of the European Union was developed in member states from 2010 to 2020, I guess, the year in which I wrote it, mostly in the situation of COVID-19. Because during COVID-19, to develop the vaccine, they used to they improved the use of animal experimentation. So in this case, I thought, okay, that there is a directive that try to protect animals, but if they are doing experimentation on animals and we have a European directive, what is happening? So what member states are doing in this case? So that was my question. And my point was, even before reading the data, it was like, okay, maybe there's something wrong. They are not enacting properly the directive. So here is the abstract. And of course, here I couldn't collect experience by member state. I collect precise data, quantitative data from the official website of the European Union, because in fact, this is the point. Each method have a list of source where you can find properly data. For instance, in the case of official data, you can use yes survey, of course, that you can make on your own, but you can use government's official site, official document from the governments, or even NGO documents, for instance, if they are certificated. So you can try to look at these sources. So in this case, I use this method, and when you use data, normally you can use also to put inside of your research also maps or or tables. For instance, in this case, collecting all the data, I add some, I put some images to show what I collected. So I think this is important, even in our law research. It's not only about medicine or epidemiology or something. It's interesting also about law and our side, let's say. Another article that I wrote, completely different from this, is this. This is about adapting international standards and ethical principles to new reproductive technology and scientific advance. Here we are talking about ethical. So ethical, it's yet something different from let's say law, even if it's linked. For instance, we have biolaw. I'm really interested in this topic, and I used to combine both. But let's say that ethical principle is something that is created by our mind. It's not something that we can prove. So in this case, I use a completely another approach, even because the article focuses on the war in Ukraine, and I don't know if you know the problem that there is with the surrogacy. Surrogacy is a method, but I think you know, where another woman got pregnant for another woman or other parents in exchange of money. Of course, in the European Union, we don't have a legislation about this. It's forbidden, but couples try to get a baby from Ukraine, for instance, or American sometimes, but Ukraine because it's nearer to European Union, so it was quite common. And after the war, we got this problem. Of course, couple that wanted a child, thank for a child, got this problem. So I collect experiences not from data, but from women in Ukraine. Of course, not from my own, but from official sources. But this is a sort of qualitative research because we don't have data here. Yes, maybe I got something, but it's completely, let's say, qualitative method in this case. And also in this case, I start with a question, even if it's not in the title, but my question was, okay, we have a legislative problem in general in Italy and in European Union with surrogacy. What is happening now that it got even worse with the war, due to the war? So my answer was, okay, for sure, it's bad and it's worse than before. Because, for instance, I discovered that babies, even if they born during the COVID-19 and during the war, they could be, let's say, delivery. Of course, it's not correct there to the couple that gave gametes or opposites due to the war. So these children were taken into nursery, but of course the situation was really bad. So I could imagine that the situation was like this, and I tried to demonstrate what is happening, what happened there. So this is like just an example. I will close the presentation. Okay. Okay, and then I think that's it, and I will be open to listen you, and if you want to ask me something, of course, I wrote other lots of other articles, but more or less the methods are the same. Well, just one thing, for instance, here I'm in my third year, so I'm writing my thesis. And my thesis it's about using the two methods, so quantitative and qualitative, but also there is other kind of methods. No, I told you at the beginning that there is a macro area that is qualitative, quantitative, and mixed. But of course, there are other methods like the normative methods, that it's an approach based on norms, complete interpretation of norms, or interdisciplinary method. For instance, it's the one that I'm using in my thesis, because my thesis is about the research about best practices in the world, about COVID-19 management. So of course I have to use an interdisciplinary approach, because the other laws are completely different from Italian laws or European laws. And I'm using, for instance, your law. I'm studying your law as well, in order to understand why the government choose law, a restriction, a measure, instead of another. So there is also an interdisciplinary approach, but there are other methods. But let's say this is the most important. So as I say, I'm open for some question if you want to ask me something.
If anyone has doubts, please put it in chat box. We'll wait for 2 minutes, ma'am. If there's any doubt anyone is having. Ma'am, we'll wait for a couple of minutes. I think there are a few questions will come in some time.
if the participants wants to ask a question, they can on their mic and they can ask directly also. So you can ask for the group photographs in case questions are not there. Ask the participants to put on their cameras on. Divyang sir, I think problem is there with the camera. Participants are trying.
Yes, ma'am, I'm trying to resolve it.
Okay.
That's a question.
Madam,
Yes.
one question is there from Sahil Sheikh. Elaborate about the research design. Mary Angela, madam?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm here. So I think, yeah, I was thinking about the question. So you mean how to write your essay, let's say, if I'm not wrong. For instance, introduction, or it's about the chapter or the part of methodology? I didn't understand the question. Because of course, when you try to start with your research, you have to try to set up an index, first of all. And also, I think the most important part is to fix your methodology. So you start to write your methodology chapter or your methodology sub-chapter, let's say, in case of an essay. Then you set the index, of course, or the sub-paragraph, and then you start to write. And according to my experience, it's important that each paragraph linked with the other. So it's like a chain. So you start with a chapter, ends, and the other, it will be like, should be like a continuum of the other one. Even if it's a bit different, there should be a sort of, let's say, a cycle in a research. It doesn't mean what kind of method you will choose, but it's important to doing like a cycle. So start with a question, go through your methodology, and then coming back to your starting point. Okay, you can use website like Google Scholar. I think it's quite interesting because you can find lots of sources there, and there are open access. Also, another one is Scopus. Normally, the university also gave like some platform in which you can find articles or data, and then you can use official data. For instance, in Italy, we have like let's say, office called ESTAT. And this office collect data for, let's say, every category, job, school, health. So there are official data. In the European Union, we have Eurostat. And it will be the same. In India, I guess there is also a data set, official one. I don't remember, I think I got into something, but I'm not remembering exactly the name. But I think that if you Google like India government data set, it will be appear. Because in Italy it's the same, so I think it would be like this, and this is like an official data. Also, there are lots of data in the United Nations. Of course, it depends on what you are searching for. Let's say you are searching about health. In this case, there are a lot of data in the World Health Organization, the SAT website. Or if you are searching about women's rights, you can find in UN Women lots of data. So of course, an official one could be this, and it's really plentiful of sources.
Hello, ma'am. There is one more question in the chat box.
Yes, I answered to this
Yeah.
last one.
Okay. Ma'am.
Yeah, and of course about how challenging it was. Sometimes it's easier and sometimes it's more challenging because it depends on what you are searching for, but normally in official website it's quite easy. I think the other part is to collect them when there are a lot of data in different years. So you have to set a span, let's say, and also specifically category in which you want to go inside with your research. Otherwise, it will be, yes, quite difficult to then to fix like something design and specifically.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It is indeed our honor to have you here as a speaker for our webinar. And thank you so much for accepting our invitation, taking out time despite the different time zones that we are in. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And thank you for being patient with our participants and for answering their queries. I, on behalf of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti's Law College of Law, I'm extremely thankful to you. Yes, and so this was the last session for the day. To all our participants, there is a small notice. We shall all meet tomorrow again at 10 a.m. To conduct discussions and for the webinar on different aspects of research methodology. We'll have new speakers tomorrow. There is one small notice. A feedback form shall be circulated. It is a request to all the participants to fill the feedback form. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mary Angela, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
So we can stop then. Divyang sir, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we can stop the meeting. Feedback form is there in the chat box. I will also upload it on the live chat on YouTube so that students who are attending it or watching it on a YouTube can submit the form. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending the session. We'll meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thank you so much. Yeah, हाँ